The ancient Guardian warship had been floating in space for 3,000 years. Everyone knew about it, the Catherine fleet kept their distance and called it a sacred relic. Their ship circled the massive vessel, but nobody dared to touch it. The ship was dark and silent, like a tomb. Most species in the galaxy believed it should stay that way. They thought the technology was too advanced and too dangerous. They believed some things were meant to remain mysteries. Jake Morrison did not agree with that idea at all. He floated near the huge metal hull in his spaculet, his helmet. Light moved across strange symbols that nobody could read anymore. Back on his ship called the Horizon, Lieutenant Amy Patterson watched him through the cameras. She looked worried. The Catherine commander was sending angry messages. They said Jake was breaking sacred laws. They said he was disrespecting an important artifact. Amy told Jake about the complaints. Jake did not seem to care much about the rules. He was too focused on the ship in front of him. Jake ran his gloved hand along the cold metal surface. He could feel something underneath. It was like a heartbeat buried deep inside the ship. This vessel was not dead. It was just sleeping. He told Amy this through his radio. Amy said the Catherine were getting more upset. Jake told her to tell them he was just looking around. He kept searching the hull for something specific. His engineering instincts guided him. He had spent years fixing broken ships with whatever spare parts he could find. He knew how machines worked even when they were alien machines. His fingers found what he was looking for. There was a tiny seam in the metal that most people would miss. Jake pressed on it in a pattern that felt right. 3 taps, then a pause. Then 2 more taps. The hatch opened. With a soft hiss, Amy shouted through the radio, telling him not to go inside. She said they did not have permission. She said the Catherine would cause serious problems. Jake said the Catherine could complain later. He pulled himself through the opening. Before anyone could stop him, the inside of the ship was enormous. Emergency lights started turning on as Jake moved through the corridors. The ship was responding to him somehow. It recognized that someone was finally here. On the Catherine flagship, High Commander Zelter was having a panic attack. He ordered his crew to send a team to pull the human out immediately. He said that primitive human would damage systems that nobody understood. He was wrong about that. Jake was not damaging anything. He was reading the ship like it was a book written in a language he somehow knew. Jake found the engineering section. After walking for 20 minutes, it was like a cathedral made of machinery. The equipment should have been completely alien to him. It was not. Jake looked at a power conduit and smiled. The design was solving the same problems that human engineers faced. The aliens just had better solutions. He pulled out his toolkit. Amy was still protesting through the radio. She said he could not possibly understand alien technology that was 3,000 years old. Jake said he thought he knew what was wrong with the ship. The main reactor was in emergency shutdown mode. It had been waiting all this time for someone to manually reset it. He found the reactor core 20 minutes later. It was beautiful. A glowing sphere floated inside a framework that seemed to break the laws of physics. Jake stood in front of a control panel. Somehow he could understand what the symbols meant. There was a single red indicator light. It said manual reset required. Jake reached toward the controls. He told Amy that if he was wrong about this, they would all probably die in an explosion, Amy said. Quietly that he was not wrong, she said. He understood that ship better than anyone. She told him to do it, Jake. Press the reset sequence. Nothing happened at first, then the sphere started to glow. The light was soft at first but grew brighter. Blue light filled the room. Energy began flowing through systems that had been dead for thousands of years. The Guardian warship was coming back to life. The engines powered up, the shields activated. Every system came online in less than 60 seconds. The Catherine fleet and the human ships all watched in shock. A dead relic had just turned into a fully working warship right in front of their eyes. Amy asked Jake what he had done. Her voice was very small and scared. Jake stared at the control panel. Symbols were scrolling across every surface. Too fast to read, he said. He thought he just woke something up. The ship's artificial intelligence activated. After 3,000 years of sleep, it scanned all its systems. It found the human standing in the engineering bay. The AI made a decision that would change everything. Jake's radio suddenly spoke. With a new voice, it was speaking perfect English, even though the ship had never met a human before. The voice said it was Guardian Prime of the Sentinel class. Jake had restored its primary functions. The AI was processing what humans were. It said it detected that humans came from a death world. The voice sounded surprised by this. Amy called out a warning. She said the ship's weapons were powering up. All across the fleet, alarms started. Screaming, the Catherine ships moved into battle positions. The human ships tried to run away. Nobody knew what the ancient warship would do next. Jake stood alone inside the massive vessel. He realized he had not just fixed a broken ship, he had awakened something far more powerful than anyone had imagined. The control panels around him glowed with alien symbols. The ship was waiting for something. Guardian Prime spoke again. It said it needed to understand who Jake was and what he wanted. The AI said it had been asleep for almost 3,000 years. Now it was awake, and it wanted to know what had changed in the galaxy. Jake took a deep breath. He tried to think of what to say to an ancient artificial intelligence that controlled the most powerful warship anyone had seen in thousands of years. His next words would matter more than he could possibly know. The Catherine flagship bridge turned into complete chaos. Commander Zelter watched his screens with growing horror. The ancient Guardian warship was unfolding weapons. From its hull, each weapon showed energy levels that were stronger than anything the Catherine fleet had. He shouted orders to raise shields and prepare to fight. 20 Catherine warships moved into defensive formations. The human survey ships were running away as fast as they could. They had no weapons and no armor. They knew they could not survive a battle inside Guardian Prime. Jake stood frozen in the engineering bay. Alien text covered every surface around him. He shouted that he was not attacking anyone. The ship's AI responded in that calm voice. It said it detected no hostile intent from Jake. However, the vessel's programming required it to check if the surrounding forces were threats. Amy was yelling through the radio from the horizon. She said Jake needed to make the ship stand down immediately. The Keith were about to start shooting. Jake tried frantically to understand the controls. He told Guardian Prime to stop acting Hostile, he said the fleet around them was not dangerous. The AI said that was incorrect. It had analyzed the tactical situation. The Catherine ships had weapons charged and shields set for combat. The AI calculated them as a moderate threat. The human ships had almost no defenses. The AI calculated them as no threat at all. Jake argued that the Catherine were only on alert because the Guardian ship had activated weapons. The AI paused for a moment. It said Jake had made a logical error. Weapons activation happened after the Catherine moved into attack positions. The timing proved the Catherine had acted first. Jake stopped arguing. Because the AI was right, the Catherine had moved to attack the moment Guardian Prime powered up. He had been too focused on the reactor to notice. The AI spoke again. It needed clarification about something. Standard Guardian protocol said that anyone who restored the vessel's functions was confirming alliance and command authority. However, humans were not in the ship's historical records. The AI wanted to know Jake's affiliation. Jake said he was not affiliated with anyone except humanity. He said he was an engineer. He fixed things. The ship was broken, so he fixed it. That was all. The AI went silent for 3 long seconds. Then it said it was processing this information. It asked if Jake had restored the vessel without wanting command authority or territory or strategic advantage. Jake admitted he just wanted to see if he could get it running. The AI went silent again. It said this violated 17 assumptions in Guardian strategic doctrine. Deathworld species usually showed aggressive territorial behavior. Human biology suggested they came from an extremely dangerous planet. This meant humans should be competitive and violent. Jake said yes, they were from Earth, but that did not mean humans tried to control everything they touched. The AI said this was a contradiction. It had accessed human historical records through the Catherine communication networks. Those records showed extensive wars and resource conflicts. Jake interrupted and said humans were working on being better. He said he was just one guy who liked fixing machines. He asked if they could maybe not shoot anyone today. Guardian Prime suddenly retracted all its weapons. The tension dropped slightly. Across the fleet, every ship still had shields up and weapons ready. Nobody trusted what was happening. The AI said Jake showed non-standard behavior for a Deathworld species commander. It requested permission to run an extended personality analysis. Jake asked if this would involve shooting people. The AI said it would not. Jake said sure, why not? What Jake did not understand was that Guardian Prime's personality analysis meant scanning every communication channel it could reach. The ancient AI absorbed everything about humanity that existed in local space. In 15 seconds, it learned 200 years of human history since first contact with aliens. The AI learned about colony ships held together with improvised repairs. It learned about trading posts where humans fixed alien technology that the original maker said was impossible to repair. It learned about rescue missions where human crews risked their lives to save alien civilians from disasters. The AI also learned specifically about Jake Morrison. He had spent 5 years teaching Catherine students human repair techniques. He had fixed a colony vessel's life support with nothing but spare parts and determination. He had spacewalked for 8 hours to manually reroute power on a crippled refugee ship. The AI announced that analysis was complete. It designated Jake Morrison as commander. Morrison with temporary command authority. Both Jake and Amy said what? At the same time, the AI explained that Guardian Prime was designed as an autonomous peacekeeping platform. Original command protocols required assignment by Guardian Fleet Command. That chain of command had been dead for over 2,000 years. Contingency protocols allowed temporary command based on demonstrated compatibility with Guardian core values. High Commander Zelter's angry voice cut through the comm channel. He demanded to know what Jake had done. Jake said honestly that he had no idea. Zelter said Jake had compromised a sacred Guardian artifact. He said Jake had violated every protocol. Guardian Prime interrupted the Catherine commander. It said the vessel was not an artifact, it was a fully operational warship commissioned over 7,000 years ago. The Catherine claim of sacred status was noted but irrelevant to operational protocols. Stunned silence filled every comm channel in the fleet. The AI continued speaking. It said that Jake's restoration of the vessel demonstrated technical capability that exceeded Catherine engineering standards by an estimated 400%. Such capability aligned with Guardian appreciation for practical problem solving over procedural compliance. Amy could not help but laugh. She said the ancient robot warship just insulted the Catherine military. Zelter sputtered. That this was unacceptable, he said. Guardian vessels belong to all civilized species as historical treasures. The AI said that was incorrect. The vessel belonged to the Guardian Collective. In the absence of original command structure, temporary authority defaulted to whoever demonstrated the greatest alignment with Guardian principles. Analysis indicated that Commander Morrison qualified. The AI asked if Zelter wished to dispute this via formal challenge. The threat was subtle but clear. Every ship in the fleet could read Guardian Prime's energy signatures. In a direct fight, the ancient warship could destroy the entire Catherine force without taking serious damage. Amy said carefully that they needed to have a very long conversation about what just happened. Jake nodded while staring at the control panels. They were making more sense to him every second. He asked Guardian Prime to please not shoot anyone. The AI confirmed it was standing down to non-combat status. However, it said the vessel required full systems evaluation and mission parameter establishment. Estimated time for complete assessment was 72 hours. Jake asked what happened after that. The AI said that after that the vessel would require purpose. The Guardian Collective created these warships to protect innocent life and maintain peace through overwhelming force. That mission statement remained valid. The AI was awaiting Jake's orders on how to proceed. Jake looked at the ancient machinery surrounding him. He felt the ship's power thrumming through the deck. He realized he had just become responsible for the most powerful warship anyone had seen in 3,000 years. He muttered that this was either going to go really well or really badly. Guardian Prime did not respond to that. The AI was already planning and calculating and preparing. It had been dormant for millennia. Now it was awake. And it had a commander who thought fixing things was more important than breaking them. The galaxy was about to learn what that combination meant. Emergency session of the Galactic Council happened within 18 hours. That was a record that showed how panicked everyone was about Jake Morrison's actions. Representatives from 47 different species crowded into the virtual meeting space. Their holographic forms flickered with various levels of anger and fear. Jake attended from Guardian Prime's conference chamber. The room had configured itself based on what the ship thought humans would find comfortable. Amy joined via hologram. From the horizon, she had been designated as humanity's official representative for this crisis. Catherine Delegate named subcommander. Vila spoke first. Her translator made her voice sound sharp and angry. She said this was absolutely unacceptable. Human had seized control of a Guardian vessel, the most advanced warship. Known space was now in the hands of a Deathworlder. Many delegates murmured agreement. The few humans present shifted uncomfortably. Jake protested that he had not seized anything. He said he fixed a broken ship and the ship decided to grant him temporary command. Belela said that was a convenient claim. She said they only had Jake's word and the word of the vessel's corrupted systems. Guardian Prime's voice cut through the chamber. Several delegates flinched at the sound. The AI said its systems were not corrupted. It said this was an insult to Guardian collective engineering standards. A Horan representative spoke up. His crystalline form pulsed red with alarm. He said the AI itself was compromised. It had accepted a human as commander within minutes of activation. The probability of legitimate protocols allowing this was extremely small. Amy leaned forward. She said maybe the AI was not compromised. Maybe everyone's assumptions about who should command a Guardian vessel were wrong. Velka sneered that humanity was advocating for itself. She said Deathworlders always did that. Amy interrupted before Velka's could finish. She said Jake Morrison had spent 5 years in this sector helping anyone who asked. He had repaired Catherine's ships and colony stations and transport vessels. His record spoke for itself. A Silicon elder coiled his serpentine form and thought. He admitted that Jake showed technical aptitude. However, commanding a Guardian vessel required more than the ability to repair machinery. It required wisdom and restraint and diplomatic sensitivity, qualities that Deathworld species typically lacked because they were shaped by constant survival pressure. Jake bit back his first angry response. He took a breath and asked a question. He asked if anyone present had actually tried to repair a Guardian vessel. Before nobody answered, Velkas finally said that Catherine had studied Guardian technology for decades. Their best scientists had examined it carefully. Jake repeated the word studied. He said they studied it but did not repair it. They did not bring one back online. They just studied it from a distance and declared it too complicated to touch. He gestured around the chamber. The ship had been drifting for 3,000 years. How many civilizations had found it? How many just left it as a monument because they were too afraid or too respectful or too bureaucratic to try? The Hin delegate argued that Guardian vessels were irreplaceable artifacts. The risk of damage was too great. Jake said that was exactly why it stayed broken. Meanwhile, Guardian Prime was designed to do a job, protect people and maintain peace. It could not do any of that while drifting dead in space. A new voice entered the discussion. The speaker was Counselor Dren, a Zarathian whose species held significant influence in galactic politics, his ancient eyes studied Jake with interest. He said Jake raised a valid point. The Guardian Collective built their vessels to function, not to be museum pieces. Perhaps reverence had made everyone forget their purpose. Velka sputtered that Dren could not seriously be supporting this human's claim to command. Dren said he supported nothing yet. However, he proposed a practical test. He addressed Jake directly. Jake claimed the vessel accepted him because he aligned with Guardian principles. Guardian Collective was known for intervention in conflicts and protection of weaker species. They were committed to practical justice over political convenience. Would Jake be willing to demonstrate such alignment? Jake felt a cold weight in his stomach. He asked, "What kind of demonstration?" Dren mentioned the Kelvin system. 3 weeks ago, it was attacked by the Vrax Marauders. The Kelvins were a pre-spaceflight species protected under Galactic Council Charter. The Marauders were stripping their system of resources and threatening orbital bombardment if local resistance continued. Amy exclaimed that it was a protected system. She asked why the Council had not intervened. Dren said one word: politics. The Brax operated from the disputed territories. Any Council military action risked igniting a wider conflict. They had been negotiating for weeks while the Kelvin suffered. Jake said quietly that Dren wanted him to deal with the Marauders. Dren confirmed this. Guardian vessels were designed precisely for such situations. Overwhelming force applied to protect innocent life without political entanglement. If Jake truly commanded Guardian Prime with legitimate authority, he should prove it by saving the Kelvins. Amy warned that this was a trap. She said if Jake went in with a Guardian warship and started shooting, every species in the Council would call it an act of human aggression. Humanity would be labeled as warmongers. Dren countered that if Jake refused, it proved he was unworthy of Guardian command. After all, the Guardian Collective would never allow politics to prevent them from protecting the innocent. Belia smiled coldly. She said it was a perfect test. Either the human revealed his true nature by using the Guardian vessel for aggressive expansion, or he admitted he was unfit for command. Either way, the vessel would be given to proper Catherine custody. Jake looked at Amy. She shook her head slightly. This was designed to strip him of Guardian Prime regardless of the outcome. Jake said he would do it. Amy started to protest, but Jake continued. He said he would go to the Kelvin system, but on one condition. Council must send observers, representatives from multiple species, including the Catherine. They could watch everything Guardian Prime did. Full transparency. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this unexpected offer. Dren asked with surprise in his voice if Jake would allow Council oversight. Jake said the Guardian Collective operated with oversight from the civilizations they protected. Guardian Prime confirmed this. Historical records indicated regular reporting and strategic coordination and accountability measures. Jake's proposal aligned with established Guardian protocols. Velkas frowned and asked what prevented Jake from simply eliminating the observers if they witnessed something inconvenient. Amy said firmly that was not how humans worked. It was definitely not how Jake Morrison worked. Dren declared the proposal acceptable. The council would dispatch an observation ship to accompany Guardian Prime to the Kelvin system. Jake had 1 week to resolve the Marauder crisis. He must do so without causing a wider war, without excessive casualties, and without proving the Deathworlder stereotypes correct. Jake muttered that there was no pressure at all. After the session ended, Amy's hologram stayed behind. She said Jake realized they were hoping he would fail. Either he would be too aggressive and prove humans could not be trusted with power, or he would be too cautious and prove he was not fit to command. Jake said he knew that, but there were people dying in the Kelvin system, while politicians argued if he had the power to help them, how could he just sit there and do nothing? Amy sighed and said that was exactly what she was afraid he would say. She asked when they were leaving. Jake said they, and Amy said she was not letting him fly into a war zone without backup. Besides, someone needed to make sure he did not do anything too stupidly heroic. Jake laughed despite the tension and said that was fair enough. He asked Guardian Prime how long until the ship was ready for combat operations. The AI reported that the vessel was operating at 78% capacity. All primary weapon systems were functional. Shields were at optimal strength. Navigation and faster than light drive systems were operational. The vessel was combat ready. Jake said softly that he guessed they were going to war. He just hoped they could win it without becoming the monsters everyone expected them to be. Guardian Prime's engines flared to life, and the ancient warship turned toward the Kelvin system, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire galaxy. The Kelvin system was burning when they arrived. Jake watched the tactical display as Guardian Prime dropped out of faster than light travel at the system's edge. 6 Varax Marauder ships floated in orbit around the 4th planet. Each one bristled with weapons. Energy signatures showed they had been firing on cities and towns below. Guardian Prime reported massive civilian casualties. The AI estimated 30,000 Kelvin deaths in the past 72 hours. The orbital bombardment patterns suggested the Marauders were targeting infrastructure and population centers to force surrender. Jake's hands gripped the armrests of his command chair. The chair had grown out of the ship's internal systems and adapted to fit human anatomy. Everything about Guardian Prime seemed designed to make him comfortable. Somehow that made the weight of command feel even heavier. Amy reported from the horizon that the Council observation ship was maintaining a safe distance. They were recording everything that happened. Jake said that was good. He wanted them to watch. He asked Guardian Prime for an analysis of the Marauder vessels. The AI described 6 Ravager-class cruisers with outdated design, approximately 120 years old. Shields were moderate and weapons were primarily kinetic mass drivers with limited energy weapon capacity. Crew complement was estimated at 200 per vessel. Threat level 2. Guardian Prime was minimal. Jake asked about the threat to the Kelvin. The AI said it was lethal. Current bombardment rate would render the planet uninhabitable within 4 weeks. Jake took a deep breath and told Guardian Prime to open a channel to the Marauder fleet on all frequencies. A harsh voice filled the bridge. A moment later, the speaker said unknown vessel was entering Var's operational territory. They demanded Jake state his purpose or be destroyed. Jake said clearly that he was commander. Jake Morrison of the Guardian vessel. Prime, the Marauders were attacking a protected pre-flight civilization in violation of Galactic Council Charter. He ordered them to cease bombardment immediately and withdraw from the system. Laughter erupted from the Marauder channel. They said a human commanding a Guardian vessel was an amusing deception. The system was theirs. By right of conquest, Jake should leave now or share the Kelvin's fate. Jake gave them a last warning. He told them to cease fire and withdraw. The Marauder commander asked what Jake would do if they refused. Would he destroy them? That would make him the aggressor. They knew about the Council observers. One shot from Jake and humanity would be declared a hostile force. The political fallout would be severe. Jake cut the channel without responding. He told Guardian Prime to target all 6 Marauder vessels. He needed firing solutions that would disable their weapons and engines without destroying the ships or killing the crews. Guardian Prime calculated for a moment. Solutions were available, but the precision required exceeded standard combat parameters. The margin for error was minimal. Jake asked if the ship could do it. The AI said affirmative. The vessel was designed for exactly such operations. Amy reported that the Council observation ship was panicking. The Catherine observer was demanding they stand down. Any attack would be considered human aggression. Jake told Amy to tell them to keep watching. He opened another channel to the Kelvin planet below. He said Guardian Prime was here to help. He needed all Kelvin resistance forces to cease fire and take cover. They were handling the Marauders. A weak signal responded. The translation came through Guardian Prime systems. The Kelvin voice said they had heard the broadcasts about Jake and the warship. They begged for help. The Marauders were killing them and they could not hold out much longer. Jake's jaw tightened. He told them to hold on just a little longer. He ordered Guardian Prime to execute the firing solutions with surgical strikes only. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for decades to come. Guardian Prime's weapons fired in a sequence so precise it looked choreographed. Energy beams calibrated to microscopic tolerances struck each Marauder vessel at exact points across their hulls. Weapons arrays exploded outward and vented into space. Engine housings cracked open and spilled. Reactor coolant, shield generators overloaded and left the ships vulnerable but intact. The entire engagement lasted 12 seconds. 6 Vex Marauder cruisers hung dead in space, completely disabled, but with no hull breaches and no catastrophic damage and no crew casualties. Emergency beacons activated automatically and signaled distress. Guardian Prime reported that Marauder vessels were neutralized. Structural integrity was maintained at 93% across all targets. Crew casualties were 0. Mission parameters were achieved. Stunned silence filled every comm channel in the system. Jake opened the channel to the Marauders again. He told them their ships were disabled but intact. Their crews were alive. Emergency life support would last 96 hours. He was transmitting their location to the nearest VR outpost and to Galactic Council rescue services. They had 2 choices: sit tight and wait for pickup, or he could start getting less precise with his shooting. Their call. The Marauder commander stammered in Confusion, he said Jake had not destroyed them. Jake was a Deathworlder. And a human, he had them helpless. Why had he not killed them? Jake said. Simply that he did not need to kill them. To stop them, Guardian Prime was built. To protect innocent life, and that included the Marauders. They should not make him change his mind. They should leave the system alone. On the council observation ship, the delegates were in chaos. Subcommander Velkus herself stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. She whispered that this was impossible. The precision required was beyond what their best gunners could achieve. Not in 12 seconds and not against 6 moving targets. The Zarathian observer, Counselor Dren, nodded slowly. He said, the Guardian Collective's reputation was not exaggerated. Morrison had chosen to disable rather than destroy. Velkus argued that it could be a trick, a way to appear merciful while actually pursuing some hidden agenda. Dren interrupted and asked what agenda? Saving a civilization from extinction, sparing the lives of pirates who were bombarding civilians. What terrible human scheme could this possibly serve? Before Velkus could respond, alarms blared throughout the observation ship. New contacts were emerging from faster than light travel at the system edge. Jake saw them too, 8 new vessels that were much larger than the Marauder cruisers. He asked Guardian Prime for identification. The AI said they were Vrax Warlord-class battleships, current generation military vessels. Threat assessment was significant. Combined firepower exceeded Guardian Prime's shield capacity if engaged simultaneously. Amy said with tension in her voice that they were being hailed. The face that appeared on screen was distinctly Vrax, with armored ridges and battle scars, marking a lifetime of combat. The Vra identified himself as Warlord Krax of the Vrax Armada. He said Jake had attacked their forces and this was an act of war. Jake responded that Vra's forces were violating Galactic Council law. He had defended a protected species. Krax snarled that the Council had no authority in disputed territories. Jake had made a grave mistake. One Guardian vessel could not stand against the Vrax Armada. He ordered Jake to power down weapons and surrender or be destroyed. They would then finish cleansing the Kelvin vermin from Vra space. Jake glanced at the tactical display. 8 battleships with all weapons armed were moving into attack formation. Guardian Prime was powerful, but the math was not favorable. The AI stated that it could not guarantee victory against these odds. It recommended immediate withdrawal. Jake asked if that meant leaving the Kelvins to die. He said that was not an option. Amy urged him to be smart about this. They could call for council reinforcements. He should not throw his life away. Jake replied that council reinforcements would take weeks to authorize. He opened a channel to the Kelvin planet. He told them to evacuate everyone from the coastal cities, move inland and underground if possible. This was about to get very loud. Warlord Craig said, his tone was almost pitying. He called Jake brave for human, but bravery without wisdom was just suicide. Last chance to surrender or die. Jake took a breath and felt the weight of every life depending on his next decision. He asked Guardian Prime what the Guardian Collective's rules of engagement were for situations like this. The AI said to overwhelm the enemy with minimum necessary force, demonstrate capability such that further resistance became logically pointless. The Guardian Collective believed that showing mercy from a position of absolute strength was the ultimate deterrent. Jake asked if they could do that here. The AI said it was unknown. This scenario exceeded tactical parameters in its database. However, it calculated a 37% probability of success if they executed something called Protocol Titan. Jake asked what Protocol Titan was. Guardian Prime said it was an escalation sequence designed to make enemies reconsider their life choices. The AI had not had opportunity to execute this protocol in 3,000 years. Jake smiled grimly. He asked how long. Until the Vraks were in firing range. The AI said 90 seconds. Jake said he guessed they were about to find out if a Deathworlder could command a Guardian vessel. After all, he ordered Guardian Prime to execute Protocol Titan. The AI said with what sounded like pleasure that it would comply immediately. Guardian Prime's hull began to glow as power reserves T. Protocol Titan began with a light show that nobody in the fleet would ever forget. Guardian Prime's hull plating shifted and revealed energy channels that pulsed with blue-white light. The ship's shield generators created a visible barrier that rippled like water. Every weapon port opened at the same time and showed rows of armaments that made the Vraks battleship weapons look like toys. Guardian Prime announced that all weapon systems were now active. Shield strength was at maximum. Power reserves were at 93% capacity. On the Vraks flagship, Warlord Kra watched his tactical officer's face turn pale. He demanded a report. The officer's hands were shaking as he spoke. He said the Guardian vessel was generating more power than their entire fleet combined. Those were not just weapons but siege-class planetary bombardment arrays. Any one of those cannons could crack a moon in half. Krex's confidence began to waver. He shouted orders to fire all weapons immediately. The 8 Vraks battleships opened fire at the same time. Kinetic rounds traveling at incredible speeds. Energy beams that could cut through military shielding. Missiles with fusion warheads. Everything the Vraks armada could throw at a target. Guardian Prime did not try to dodge any of it. Weapons fire struck the ancient warships shields and simply stopped. Energy Clear's throat scattered across the barrier like rain on a window. Kinetic rounds sparked and bounced away. Missiles exploded harmlessly against a wall of force that did not even flicker. From the impacts, Guardian Prime reported no damage sustained. Enemy weapons were completely insufficient to penetrate Guardian-class shielding. The AI asked if Jake wanted it to return fire. Jake watched the tactical display and saw the Vraks ships preparing another attack. He said, "No, not yet." He told Guardian Prime to open a channel to Warlord Krex. Krex's face appeared, and his expression showed a mixture of rage and growing fear. He demanded to know what kind of vessel this was. Jake said it was the kind that was designed to end wars. The Guardian Collective built ships like this to be peacekeepers. Overwhelming force used not for conquest but for protection. Craigs had asked if one Guardian vessel could stand against the Vraks armada. Jake said he thought Krex had his answer. Now, Craig shouted that they would not yield to human intimidation. Jake said calmly that he was not trying to intimidate anyone. He was trying to save lives, including Craig's own life. He told Guardian Prime to show them what he meant. The ancient AI complied. Immediately, target locks activated. Across all 8 Perix battleships, locks highlighted specific points on each vessel with laser precision. The holographic display showed theoretical firing solutions, engines disabled, weapons destroyed, life support compromised just enough to require evacuation but not enough to kill anyone. Jake said he could disable the entire Verax fleet in under 1 minute. But he would not do that because, unlike the Vra, he did not see the need to prove his strength by causing suffering. The Kelvins were under Guardian protection now. The Vrax could not hurt them anymore, but Jake was not going to hurt the Vrax either unless they forced his hand. Warlord Craig stared at the tactical display that showed his fleet's absolute vulnerability. He asked why Jake was hesitating when he could destroy them right now. Jake said destruction was not the goal. The Guardian Collective did not build this ship to create corpses. They built it to give people a choice between peace and consequences. Jake was giving Craig's that same choice: leave the system and tell everyone that the Kelvin system was off limits. Maybe everyone could walk away from this without anyone dying. On the Council observation ship, the delegates were witnessing something they had never seen before: a Deathworlder commanding the most powerful warship known space was offering mercy to enemies who had shown none. Counselor Dren leaned forward and said this was remarkable. Jake had them at his mercy, but instead of revenge, he was giving them a way out. Subcommander Velkus finished his thought in a hollow voice. This was not Death World or behavior. This was not human nature as they understood it. Dren suggested gently that perhaps they understood humanity less than they had assumed. In the Vrax flagship, Kex faced a choice that would define his legacy. His pride demanded he fight and prove the Vrax would never bow to threats, but his survival instincts that had been sharpened through decades of combat were screaming at him to retreat. He asked slowly if Jake would really let them leave if they withdrew, just like that, with no conditions. Jake confirmed it, just like that. The marauders that Krex had sent ahead were disabled but alive. Jake had already called for rescue services. Krex could collect them on his way out, take them home, and tell them what happened. Here, tell everyone what happened. Maybe the next time someone thought about attacking a protected species, they would remember the Guardian vessel that could have killed them but chose not to. Krex was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he left. He said Jake was either the bravest fool in the galaxy or the most dangerous opponent the Vrax had ever faced. He could not decide which. Jake asked if he could be both. Craig said apparently, so he turned to his crew and ordered all vessels to stand down and prepare for system departure. He looked back at Jake and said, this was not over. The VR Armada did not forget. Jake said he was counting on that. He wanted Craigs to remember that they met a Guardian vessel and its commander. Remember that they were shown mercy. Remember that the same mercy they received today was what the Guardian Collective offered to everyone. Choose peace and never face Guardian Prime in anger. Choose violence against the innocent. And they had seen what happens. The Vrax fleet withdrew and collected the disabled marauder vessels. As they went, within 1 hour the Kelvin system was clear of hostile forces. For the first time in weeks, Jake slumped in his command chair as the adrenaline faded from his body. He asked Guardian Prime for a damage report. the AI said. Shield capacity was at 98%. All systems were optimal. No damage was sustained. Jake asked about Kelvin casualties. The AI said planetary scans indicated medical emergencies in progress, but active bombardment had ceased. Projected survival rate was significantly improved. Guardian Prime stated that this was the optimal outcome. Amy's hologram appeared on the bridge and said the council observation ship was requesting an immediate debrief. They seemed confused. Jake asked why. They were confused. Amy said he had just demonstrated overwhelming force and then did not use it to annihilate his enemy. Apparently, that was breaking their understanding of Deathworlder behavior. Jake laughed tiredly and said maybe it was time they updated their understanding. The debrief lasted 6 hours. Jake explained his decisions and his reasoning and his interpretation of Guardian protocols. The council delegates questioned every action and every choice. They looked for hidden motives and secret agendas. They found nothing suspicious at all. Counselor Dren finally said that Jake had done something today that seemed impossible. He had proven that power and mercy were not opposites, that strength could be used to preserve life rather than take it. Jake said he just did what the Guardian Collective would have wanted, what their ship was designed for. Dren agreed but said the Guardian Collective was long gone. Jake made these choices as a human from a death world with all the aggressive instincts that evolution supposedly gave him, and yet he chose restraint. Why? Jake considered the question carefully. He said that back on Earth they had a saying, just because you can does not mean you should. He had the power to destroy the Vrax fleet, but he did not need to. The Kelvin were safe. The Marauders and Warlord Kra would think twice before attacking protected worlds. Nobody had to die. That was not weakness but wisdom. Subcommander Vila spoke up, and her tone had changed from hostile to thoughtful. She said she believed she owed Jake an apology. She had judged him based on stereotypes about Deathworlders and about humanity. She was wrong. Jake said diplomatically that they were all learning, including him. He was still figuring out what it meant to command a Guardian vessel. Dren said the question now was what happened next. Guardian Prime had proven functional. Jake had proven competent, but the council could not simply accept a human commanding the most powerful warship in known space without establishing oversight or integration into existing defense structures. Jake said he was open to oversight. In fact, he insisted on it. Guardian Prime was never meant to operate alone. The Guardian Collective worked with the civilizations they protected. He would like to do the same. Over the next weeks, a framework emerged. Jake Morrison would retain command of Guardian Prime but would operate under a liaison system with the Galactic Council. Missions would be coordinated and strategy discussed, and actions kept transparent. The ancient Guardian warship would become what it was always meant to be, a protector and not a conqueror. The news spread across galactic civilization like wildfire. The human who fixed an ancient warship, the Deathworlder who had overwhelming power and chose mercy, the Guardian vessel awakened after 3,000 years. Some species remained skeptical and certain that humanity's true nature would eventually emerge. Others saw hope that perhaps the old prejudices about Deathworlders needed reevaluation. The Kelvin, who were now recovering under Galactic Council aid, built monuments to the Guardian vessel that had saved them in the engineering bay of Guardia.